Hello, and welcome to my Rock Files podcast. I am Mark Chatterton, and today I would like to welcome onto the show John Simpson, a musician, guitarist, and songwriter. Many of you will know John from the Feelgood Band, which he founded and was a member of for several years. And more recently, John has teamed up with my old mate Pete Feenstra in the partnership of Feenstra and Simpson to produce a new set of songs. We will be discussing these two ventures as well as John's other aspects of the music industry. So a warm welcome to you, John.
Thanks, Mark. Nice. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for agreeing to the interview. I'd just like to start off with your sort of early life. I mean, what were your first sort of musical influences, and what groups and artists were you into from an early age, would
Sure.
you say?
I got into music. I don't know if it's young or not, but what happened was that I was about six, I think, and suddenly the Beatles came out,
Yeah.
and I wanted to watch. There wasn't much on black and white television in those days, but I wanted to watch everything they were on, and luckily enough, my parents allowed me to do that. So the biggest influence that ever really is and was the Beatles. I wanted to learn to play the guitar pretty much straight away from that.
Mm.
I didn't accomplish that until I was about 13, I think.
Yeah.
I got my first guitar and struggled with it for a while, and then it suddenly clicked, and I thought, oh, I know how to do this now. I probably wasn't helped in my early days on guitar because I'm left-handed,
Yeah.
but all the guitars laying around, my cousin had a guitar, was strung right-handed, and I just picked it up and tried to learn to play wrong-handed for me, which is what I've done. So I still play right-handed even though I'm left-handed. I don't know if that's an advantage or not.
Yeah. Was that quite hard then,
Um,
trying to learn it that
well,
way?
I think the difference is that the rhythm
Mm.
my best rhythm actually if I'm playing drums will be left hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so my rhythm isn't well. It is all right now. People tell me. But yeah, that took a bit of learning the rhythm. Whereas the chord shapes perhaps are easier because I'm using my good hands to make
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
chord shapes.
Mm.
So I don't know the answer to that one, but
No.
it worked out okay. So yeah, it was the Beatles really through the '60s, and then uh, in fact that's all I was interested in, and through until about I started to grow up a little bit, and then the early '70s came along, and I really liked people like Slade and Mott the Hoople, and in particular David Bowie.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so then I moved on to my Bowie era,
Yeah.
um, and then a bit later in the mid '70s, when 75, I suppose 76, I bought the Dr Feelgood Stupidity live album,
Yeah.
which is still one of my favourite live albums,
Mm.
and didn't actually sort of follow Dr. Feelgood ever so closely in those days. They were one of a number of acts, and then I
Yeah.
moved into things like Squeeze, Elvis Costello, XTC, and still I like all those people, and I haven't really
Yeah.
moved on since then, to be
Mm.
honest with you. So
So
they're my sort of influences,
yeah.
really.
Yeah. So what age did you start going to live gigs and things, and who did you see in those early
Oh,
days? Can you remember?
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I remember going to Earl's Court and
Yeah.
seeing Queen
Yeah.
uh, just after Bohemian Rhapsody. So that would have been about 1975,
Yeah.
76, I
75, I
think.
think. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw. I used to go to watch people at the Dunstable Queensway Hall. I
Yeah.
remember seeing Curved Air,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing the Pirates.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure I went too often outside of that. Most of my, because, when you're 16 or 17 in those days, you didn't have a lot of money. So
Mm.
if any music you watched would be whichever band was playing in your local live music pub,
Yeah.
because you didn't pay to get in, obviously, and still don't usually for
Mm.
local bands. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, Queen, Dave Edmunds, certainly saw Dave Edmunds, Frankie Miller, went to see him in Hemel Hempstead. Um, on the local scene, a guy who went on to become famous was in a band called Street Band, Paul Young,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he played a lot around the local pubs in Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire where I live. And I used to watch his band before he became famous. I haven't ever seen him perform since, but I saw him when he was a local jobbing musician,
Yeah,
if you like.
sure. Yeah.
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 So it's all sort of really pop and rock is
Yeah.
my main influences.
So,
I also have quite a large collection of Frank Sinatra, and
all
believe it
right.
or not, I also have Al Jolson records
All
that
right.
I
Yeah.
still
Oh,
listen to from time to time.
yeah. Yeah. Well, good for you.
But
Yeah.
I think they're
Everyone's got
great.
their own taste, obviously, haven't they? So
Sure,
you didn't
sure.
mention any punk bands, so I take it you weren't really interested in punk at all. It was more
I like the
the
Sex
bass.
Pistols.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought Nevermind. I don't know if we're allowed to say it or not. So I bought
Yeah.
the Nevermind album,
Yeah.
and I loved that album. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I also bought London Calling by the Clash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Outside of those, I didn't know. I didn't. Those
No.
are
No.
probably the only two. Because I've always been a bit. I like a few chords in the songs, and I like some
Yeah.
melody.
Mm.
And that's not to to knock anybody really, but that's why I think I went more towards Elvis Costello and Squeeze and
Yeah.
XTC
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
clever songwriters
Yeah.
and performers. That they sort of carried on where Bowie and the Beatles left off, if you
Mm.
like.
Yeah.
I don't think they were as good as either of those two, but
Oh, obviously. No.
they had a fair shot in.
Yeah. So about this time, sort of late 70s, is that when you first started playing in the band and everything? Or
Yeah. My first live performance was in 1975,
yeah.
playing in a covers band, and I was on bass guitar in those days. Like a lot of bands, me and some school friends formed a band. Nobody wanted to play the bass. So I could already play
Yeah.
guitar by then, but I
Yeah.
didn't think I was particularly good on the guitar. So I thought I'd have a go at the bass. I'd always listened to Paul McCartney's bass playing and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So I picked the bass up and fairly quickly got okay at it. Yes, the first band was all covers, rock and roll stuff, and a few contemporary for the time songs. Like I think we did some Eagles and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I did that for a couple of years, knocking around a couple of local bands. And then in 1978, I joined again a local band who were quite big in the clubs in this part of the world. They were called Five Star Gas.
Yeah.
And before Five Star came out, we were called Five Star Gas. And we, in 78, released a single, which we self-recorded and in a studio in Luton, and we put it out ourselves. Dropped a copy off at the door of Radio 1 in London, and the next day it got played 3 times on Radio 1, which was
All right. That's good.
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's lived with me ever since, and my fellow bandmates. We just couldn't believe it because in those days, record pluggers were, it had to almost, I don't know what went on, but to get your record played on the radio, the pluggers were heavily involved. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
So it must have been a reasonable record. I can guess. I can only guess if it got played 3 times. But
is it worth a lot of money now then?
They do come up occasionally on eBay for about £25 or £30, but it's not worth a lot of money. Of course, the problem with it wasn't a problem for us. We didn't really appreciate perhaps what we should have done with it. We just used to sell. We were gigging regularly, and we would just sell the single at the gigs. And of course, probably what we should have done is gone to a record label and said, "Look, this has just been with no promotion at all. This has just been played 3 times on Radio 1. The lunchtime. I remember the 1 o'clock one. Actually, I didn't hear it, but it was about 11 in the morning, 1 o'clock, and then I think in the 5 o'clock show.
Yeah.
But in those days, you could phone, believe it or not, you could phone the BBC and say, "Can you tell me what record you played yesterday at 1:10? And they would tell you so that you could go out and buy it. Of course, in our case, you couldn't go out and buy it unless you happened to come to a gig. It never sold great. It only got played that one day, and it never sold in great quantities, other than we did get rid of most of those copies that we had printed. Although I do still have about 20 in my loft. So
if you want to buy one, contact me and I'll get in contact with you.
Yeah.
Because obviously go fast forward a few years now, because you were the founder of the blue of the Feelgood Band.
Yeah,
Yeah, how long ago
yeah.
was that then?
Well, that was. Let me just
Yeah,
carry on from where I
rather
was.
in between. Yeah, sure.
From 79 through to about 82, I was in that band. So we
Yeah,
did some original stuff, but again, mostly we did corporate events and we played
yeah,
cover songs
yeah,
and those kind of things. And in about 81, 82, I joined an all originals band.
yeah,
And we put together a load of demos and took them to the record companies. But it was the timing was all wrong. We won one or two local talent contests,
yeah,
or
yeah,
what they call them now, but best band or something
yeah,
awards. And uh, we went to the record companies with high hopes, but unfortunately, it was just at the time that people like Soft Cell and Human League
yeah,
were coming out, and all we got from record companies was, "Oh well, can you put synthesizers on these tracks?
mm,
Can you do it with a drum machine rather than a real drummer?
yeah,
Guitars are
yeah,
not,
mm,
So that wasn't what we were about. So we
no,
sort of became a bit disheartened, and and we went back to doing covers and clubs, and we just sort of gave up on the idea of
yeah, yeah,
writing our own songs, and we just. I like playing other people's songs, and I like playing the guitar. So
yeah,
all of this, by the way, I was still on bass all the way through this.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so then we can wind forward.
yeah, sure, sure.
Quite a few years of playing bass guitar in covers bands.
Yeah,
Um, my daughter also is a great singer actually, and I also did a duo with her in more recent years, um, which again I played guitar in that as opposed to bass because it was just a duo.
yeah,
Um, and that set, and then I started to think, well, maybe I could front a band doing covers, but not play. I got fed up playing bass.
yeah. Oh,
I've
sure.
been
Yeah,
playing bass for all those years, and I just thought, well, I'm fed up playing bass, so I'm going to move on to guitar if I can find anyone that will have me. Fortunately, I found a local band, a really good local band, and I became the sort of front man and guitar player, or one of the guitarists. We had a lead player, and I played rhythm. Um, and we played contemporary stuff for the time, Stereophonics, Oasis, all those kind of things. But when we played old rock and roll, I remember the drummer saying to me, I don't know what you're doing on the rhythm there, but I really like it.
mm,
And I thought, I think what I'm doing on the rhythm is Wilko. I hadn't consciously
yeah,
done that, but because I always liked Wilko and I love that sound on the
mm,
75
yeah,
Stupidity LP we mentioned,
mm,
um, I thought, yeah, it does sound, sounds like Wilco. Anyway, I did that band for a couple of years, and that sort of petered out, which is generally what happens. And I got fed up with that as well, doing those things, Oasis and
yeah,
Stereophonics
yeah,
and all that. I got fed up with that. And I thought, I think I might have come to the end of my days of live playing. So this was about 2013, 2012, actually, probably. But then I saw a clip of, in fact, I bought the DVD called Going Back Home. I already had the video from years ago, but I bought the DVD Going Back Home, which is, I think, has got about 6 tracks of Dr. Feelgood at the Kursaal.
right.
And I watched it again, and I was absolutely spellbound by the performance. In fact, I watched it and said, I want to play harmonica like Lee Brillo plays harmonica.
Yeah,
So for Christmas that year, I got a harmonica, and I can't really play it. But what it did prompt me to do was think, well, I can play a bit like Wilco. I wonder if I can start a band and find other musicians that want to play it.
yeah,
And also, can I find any venues that would be interested in putting that
mm,
sort of gig on?
yeah, yeah,
So I put adverts out here, there, and everywhere. I did a few demos, which I still have actually, of me with some backing that I put together, playing the early Feelgood stuff, but emphasising the fact that I needed a singer and a drummer and a bass player. But I was doing the kind of Wilco stuff. I was lucky enough to, to go. Well, I went through a number of different singers and a number of different drummers over the period of the whole period of the Feelgood Band, and 3 different front men. But I was the constant in all that, along with the bass player who started pretty much straight
yeah,
away with me as
yeah,
well. So there were 2 of us in it from the beginning, and lo and behold, that it seemed there were enough musicians around who wanted to give it a go. It took a while to find someone that wanted to play, because it wasn't meant to be a tribute, but that's what everybody called it. It was meant to be almost a recreation of that early sound.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We didn't try and be anybody. I didn't try. Nobody could do Wilko. Wilko was a unique performer.
Yeah.
I just tried to put some energy into the performance and get that sound, it seemed to do okay on that front. So we got the band up and running, did a few local gigs, and then due to the power of the good old internet, particularly in those days, it's harder now, we came to the attention of the people of Southend and surrounds. And of course, some of those knew Wilko, some of them knew Sparko, I managed to secure a couple of gigs down that way.
Yeah.
We did a couple down there, and the word spread. And then I think the third one we did down there, Wilko and Sparko came along to the gig. And I was going to say it took off quite quickly. It didn't really what's the word? It didn't kind of go. It didn't take off, but it went from bumping along in local pubs where I live to we're starting to play some nicer venues. Because of the feedback we'd got from Wilko and Sparko in particular, we were able to use that in our marketing. And the power of the internet again, you can go countrywide. You can put a video on YouTube, as you know, people anywhere in the world can watch it. So that's what I did. I built the Facebook page, built a website.
So were you called the Feelgood Band from the start then?
Pretty much, pretty much. There was a few days where we decided we might. We always referred to it. We found out later the chaps that were in the band at that time would always say to their other halves or whatever, "Oh, I'm off for a rehearsal with that Feelgood Band tonight," or the Feelgood, And that's how I, which band are you at with? Oh, I'm going to the Feelgood Band. I only had the one band, but. We did toy with 4 Feelgood fans, and that could be taken 2 ways. We're doing it for Feelgood fans, and we were 4 Feelgood fans. Anyway, it was too complicated, so we dumped that, and we just stuck with the Feelgood Band. So we went sort of live. I think the first gig was November 2013. So we'd gone all through that year rehearsing and what have you. And just during that period, it coincided with Wilko's cancer diagnosis, and then his coming out the other side of that. Fender released a Telecaster, a tribute, signature they called it, Fender Telecaster signature, which I was lucky enough to. I think they made 200, and I got one of them. And even things like that help with the marketing, so you can put the picture of me playing the red and black Telecaster, and anyone that knows anything about Dr. Feelgood would immediately think, that might catch their eye because of the guitar, So, when Wilko came along to a gig, actually, he came and joined us on stage, and he played my guitar, which was a great thrill, and then signed it afterwards, as did Sparko. So my particular Wilko Telecaster has got 2 extra signatures on it, one of Wilko and one of Sparko. So that's good. That's a nice memory. It hangs on the wall now. It doesn't get much use at the moment.
I suppose you could always wipe the autograph off if you played it too hard.
I did. I have tried to protect it with some stuff, and it hasn't spoiled the signature, but it has kind of made it a little bit lumpy, the surface. So you can read it no problem, but it just feels a bit uneven. But I wanted to protect it as best I could.
So you were with them for quite a few years. Did
10 years,
we had the lockdown and COVID and everything. Did that sort of stop the band from progressing as it was doing?
Yes, a couple of things happened actually. We were doing very well, and we were very lucky, and we were lucky enough to receive endorsements from, as I said, Wilko, Sparko, a number of other local people that knew the original Dr. Feelgood. One in particular, Dean Kennedy, who sadly died in 2019, I think it was 2019, was very supportive, and Dean helped us put together what we called a tribute to Lee Brillo. We called it Lee Brillo: A Celebration. There's videos on YouTube of what happened. So there's film of the band performing here and there, but there's also a 35-minute Q&A, which Dean arranged for people. Big Figure came, Sparko, Malcolm Wilkinson was there. That's Wilko's brother. Phil Ashcroft was there, and Lou Lewis came along. And Peter Clark came along, who was the original Dr. Feelgood lighting and road manager. So that was a Q&A on stage. That was 19. Unfortunately, Dean died just before that event took place. Right. And Dean had been helping us spread the word, raising our profile. The promoter of that gig was Pete Feenstra.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that's where we. I'd already done some gigs for Pete. I played at the Boom Boom Club and the New Torrington and the place out in southeast London, which name escapes. Beaverwood, yes. We had a few great nights at the Big. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And so I already knew Pete from that. So that was 19. Then 20, we carried on. The gigs were getting better. Well, when I say better, what was happening? We were getting to play to places where there's an in-house PA, there's a sound engineer. People were paying a few quid to get in, and you didn't have to carry quite as much gear because you didn't have to supply the PA. And it just felt nicer. And of course, people were paying maybe 5 or 10 quid to get in, but at least they wanted to see you. You know what I mean? Whereas if you stand in a pub, 75% of the pub might not be all that interested. So it's nice when people pay to get in. So we moved up to that sort of level. One of the challenges is, and probably still is, that there is a band still called Dr. Feelgood.
I was going to ask you about that,
as you know. And one of the challenges for us was when I was trying to take us to that next level, people would say to me, well, we already booked Dr. Feelgood, so why would we book a tribute? Unfortunately, unless you're about 60 years of age or over at that stage, you probably didn't really know who the original Dr. Feelgood were. So these people were saying, well, we get the four chaps and they're a great band, and I know they are. But what my argument was, but then they don't sound any longer. They've like the 1970s version. They've developed, I suppose, into a different sounding band, and we think there was enough of an audience of the old sound that we could have. Not played alongside them, but we could have done the same venues. We did one or two venues. Dr. Feelgood would do, let's say, the December gig at this venue, and we might play in June. So 6 months apart shouldn't be too much of a problem. But in the end, I'm not saying that was the only thing. I think I did it for 10 years, and mostly it was Wilko material, Dr. Feelgood Wilko material, which was about. The songs are very short and very fast, so you needed we used to do two 1-hour sets, and I think there are about 20 songs in each set, because they're all very short and very fast, which was great workout. I've never sweated so much in all my life. And but when you're playing the same thing for that length for 10 years, and not seeing particular progress, COVID didn't help. We were still on the sort of, when we did the Hammersmith gig in that November 9, I think it was 19. Sorry, it wasn't November, it was April 19. We carried on through 19 doing okay, and we got into early 20, and then of course lockdown happened, and then we didn't play for 18 months. And when we came back, I wasn't sure if we could still play, but it didn't take long. And we carried on, but it felt to me like we were just gig-wise treading water, and I was just getting a little bit tired of it, really, because and no one's got a divine right to a big crowd turning up, but it just felt sometimes like you're pushing water uphill. It was like it was, if the crowd isn't big enough, then you're not going to get rebooked, and then if there are not enough people want it, why are you doing it? So anyway, I came to the conclusion that I'd had enough during. Whatever year that was, where are we now? 24. So that must have been 22, I think. End of 22, because it's nearly 2 years since I did my last gig. In fact, it is 2 years then. I gave the band notice. And what I also did at the time was contact all the people that had helped me over the years, given me gigs and so on. And one of those people was Pete Feenstra.
Right.
So I rang Pete to say, I'm packing up. Thanks very much for everything. And he just said we had a little chat, and he said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "Well, for the time being, anyway, I've always had a little recording room at home. I love home recording. Done it ever since I was 18, pretty much. And I'll be knocking out a few original songs.
Yeah.
But my only problem is I don't think my lyrics are all that good. Yeah. I can come up with tunes and I can come up with chords, and I don't think the lyrics are particularly good." And Pete said, "Well, I write loads of lyrics." He then quoted me. I've forgotten how many. I think he said during lockdown he had 4 CDs of his stuff, really, his lyrics. Written music by other people, but his lyrics. Anyway, he sent me. Pardon me. He sent me very rough hand-recorded demo and some lyrics. And that's what he still does now. Sometimes it's just Pete tapping on his dining table and singing a tune, and then the lyrics that go with it. Sometimes I can pick out of that the tune that he's trying to get at. Other times I might, for whatever reason, it's the first time I've ever done it. I've never written before this, against someone else's lyrics. Sometimes I just take the lyric and it just goes off in a completely different direction. But whatever it is, so far anyway, I think we're on 9 releases now. Well, they sound all right. They've come out.
Because I was looking at some of the videos earlier, and you have someone who does the videos for you, and it really
I do now.
gets
Yes,
across, doesn't it? Really.
Yes, it's it seems to me, and I mean I'm not an expert, but it seems to me that these days, if you don't have a video to go with your song, people won't give it a second or glance, I suppose. It's a weird one because it's the song, really, But for the first couple of releases we did, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, that I did the videos in my music room. But then a friend of mine said, "Oh, I can do them for you much more quickly and much more easily." But for me, it was easier for me because I just have to turn up. Move around, So he doesn't for me. He doesn't for me now. So it's quite a nice little cottage industry, really. We got Pete sitting in France writing his lyrics and some of the melodies, and then I got Stuart, my other friend, waiting for me to send him the finished song with the lyrics, so he can then think about what to put in the video, and I can just concentrate a bit more then on just doing the recordings, because on the recordings it's me, so it takes a while to record, build it up and do the vocals and all the rest of it, but I love that, so that's right up my street.
Because I have to tell people watching that you actually got in the charts.
Well,
it's Mike Reed's Heritage chart that you
Heritage chart,
which is on Talking Pictures TV, if you ever see that on the satellite TV or whatever.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And Mike Reed does a breakfast show every morning, every weekday morning. And there are various DJs on there. Pete, because of his contacts, sent our tracks to Mike. And I don't know if he'd sent any of the previous releases, but the third release was a track called I Don't Get It, which was just like a tribute to Wilko, really. I sort of played as best I could Wilko style, and I peppered the video with all sorts of images of all the people that I'd met while I was doing that. So again, the big figure was in there, Sparko, Wilko, Dean Kennedy, Will Birch was in there, Lou Lewis, all those people, those kind of legends for me were there I was grinning away next to them because they came to the gigs. So that song made number 17 in his Heritage chart, and the way the Heritage chart is structured is Mike Reed plays a song if he likes it. I don't know if he plays songs he doesn't like, but if he likes it, he plays them. And we then rely on people voting. It's a weekly vote. So for us to have reached 17, and it's only a top 40, but for us to have reached 17 was a real achievement. We haven't managed it since.
No.
So I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but I'll have to come up with some better ideas. But it was fabulous, really. It was really nice. We got on the Talking Pictures chart show, so we got my video got played on his Talking Pictures.
It's good,
program, and
so would you say it's just going to be video releases, or do you think you'll ever play these songs live at all?
I don't know about live performance because there are 9 songs and there are a couple that are in that Wilko style or Dr Feelgood style, and others are not. People say, "Oh, it sounds like Travelling Wilburys or Electric Light Orchestra or Nick Lowe or someone else." There was someone else that Tom Petty kept coming up, which staggered me. I've got to be honest, I'm not a Tom Petty fan, and yet people say, "Oh, that could be Tom Petty." Okay, well, I'll take that. That's a nice compliment. But, it surprised me. So I don't know about live performance. No. From a personal point of view, I am considering going out live again, but whether I'll play any of those songs or just covers again, I don't know. I don't know. So that's for next year.
So if anyone wants to hear these songs, what do they tune in to?
Well, they're on all the music platforms. So they're on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, all sorts of things. Things I don't know about. But we do it through a company. We distribute it through a company called DistroKid, and they put it on everything under the sun, really.
Sure.
The videos themselves are all on YouTube. On John Simpson Music is the YouTube channel.
Sure.
And I mean, if people want to listen to them, and it's always nice to get nice comments on them as well. So
that's good.
I don't think Pete or I are expecting to, make a fortune or get world acclaim. It's just nice that people are enjoying
get
it.
them out there, really.
Yeah. And the latest release, which it'll kill me if I don't mention it, is called Two Halves Make a Whole, which is a strange title. But anyway, I managed to get a song out of it, and people, even on this one, people were saying, Wilko sounds like Dr Feelgood, Wilko, and I was like, well, actually, I wasn't really trying on this one. It was just it's rock and roll, it's sort of almost doo-wop in parts. But that's our latest release, and it did make. What happens with Mike Reed's chart is below the 40 is what he calls the breakers. So his DJs can play those tracks. And if enough people enjoy it and vote for them, they move from that breakers area into the top 40. If not, they kind of languish in that breakers bit for a few weeks and then disappear. Well, I think that's what's happening to Two Halves. Actually, we're up against a plethora of Christmas releases now as well. So I remember the release of the previous. I think it was the previous track, which. Was the same time, the Beatles released that Now and Then song.
That's right.
It was the same time as that, and then for 1 week only, we were at number, 45, and the Beatles were at number 44, and that was. I kept a snapshot of that particular chart because I've not been in the same chart as the Beatles before. Of course, that went up the chart without any effort, and ours didn't. But I'm not complaining. It's lovely that we get plays, and if we happen to make the top 40, even nicer, because then we get on that television show that you mentioned.
Right. Well, I have to wind up there because we're just running out of time, unfortunately.
Are we? That's me. I talk too
really
much.
Quick, hasn't it? But thanks for doing it, John, and wish you luck for all your future releases.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, then. Okay.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, then.
Cheers.